Okay, so Sass, this is going to be my review of your daily here. This is going to be the same match that I've done for everybody else. Right now, I want to talk to you about the spot that you're sitting in on Lunar Colony. And you may recognize this. This is the starting spot. This is basically where the enemy team is going to come out of spawn. They're going to go down that hallway and they're going to turn right and go in there. This hallway is not a good place to stand for as Reaper, which I think while we were playing I should have stopped you, but I was like, no, I'm going to let this go ahead. So here's the deal, is that your team comp consists of an Orisa, a Roadhog, a Junkrat, a Brigitte, a Mercy, and you. And so everybody except for the Orisa is very close range, whereas the Orisa is mid to far range. So nobody is actually in a position to heal you. If we had a Moira, then the spot may have been okay because she could just throw like a healing orb, and the Junkrat could have stood on the corner of the stairs and started shooting things in there. But the Junkrat's not shooting explosives down the stairs or anything, and you're actually standing in the enemy team's line of fire. Like, you hiding in this corner, they are going to see you because this corner is not far back enough to hide. So what's going to happen is you're going to end up 1v6ing this entire team, and then what's going to happen next is they're going to go up the stairs and everybody's going to 5v6 them. So this is not really a good area. What I would have recommended is that you stay higher up the stairs next to the Orisa on that shelving unit in that room. And in that shelving unit you could have crouched, and that pretty much would have handled everything here. But yeah, so let's go ahead and play this and then talk about this. I see that your latency is 65, which I don't know how you're getting that. Mine is like 79, whatever. That's not fair, but let's keep going. I'm going to turn on this volume here so we don't get distracted by the in-game conversation here. Alright, so let's see how this pans out. Alright, so the Widow misses you, thank God. So at the moment the Moira turns to you, if this was comp, you'd be in trouble. It's because the moment the Moira came through this room, she's going to say, okay, well, the Reaper's here. It would have been nice if the Reinhardt, or if there was a Reinhardt that came through here, then his back would have been turned to you, so that would have worked. But no, I don't think that this would be the good case. It would be a little bit better if you were a Tracer or a Genji. This would have been a good spot because you could get out of the way fast enough. But yeah, right now, just understand that if you're hiding in this corner, you're not getting any backup. Is that nobody can get to you fast enough. Nobody's long range. If there was a sniper, this would have been perfect. But yeah, as I'm saying, if there was like an Ashe, this would have been great because she could have thrown an explosive and started shooting at people, and then you could have shot at people. But yeah, right now you don't have anybody who's able to help you. So let's keep playing. And then when you said you can't aim today, yeah, that's pretty much why. There was nothing that you could do to save yourself here or get any kills, because you'd have both healers and this Roadhog and whatever. So yeah, this was not a good spot. Anyways, let's see what happens next. Okay, so right at that point is where you should have backed up the stairs next. Is that, like, I know it's very tempting to kill the Roadhog, but yeah, you should have kept backing up the stairs so that way your team could be in a better position to give you some backup. When you tucked into this room out of sight, that was the end of the ability for anybody to assist in helping you. It's good that Fluffy was able to get the healer down, but still, I don't think, since you were so close to the enemy spawn, I don't think it was worth the reward here of what happens. So when you got pulled right now, I'm not sure if you're aware, and I do want to show you too, is that when you started taking damage, the rest of the team actually came down the stairs to try to help you out, and this is how we ended up losing point, is where, let me go ahead and rewind this about like 10 seconds here. So you're going to see, here's at the point where somebody is on point. And it's actually a Farah that's on point right now, but the rest of the team came down the stairs to keep you from dying when really they should have pulled back and started going to point already. And so I think that if you had pulled back up the steps instead, you would have taken the high ground, and then from the high ground you could have shot the Farah down. So that would have worked out a little bit better. But like I said, just keep in mind, I think if there was a different team comp, then this idea would have worked, or it had a higher chance of working. But we were dealing with a close range team comp, and so if there's a close range team comp, you need to position yourself within range of that area. So you need to stay in Brigitte's flail range is what I would recommend here. So that's something that we do have to work on as far as getting coordinated and deciding what we're going to do with the comp. Is I feel like what should have happened is that you should have started Ash here and then stayed on the balcony, and that probably would have we probably would have held on a little bit longer. So let's keep going. All right.
I'm backing.
Backing up. Okay, cool. All right. So this was another thing. Nobody reported the widow over there, which is kind of unfortunate. But let's see if we can see her. Yeah, so the widow's right there. In that case, unfortunately, there's not really much you can do at that point. It's pretty much... your wraith form is done. So yeah, I think at this part, in this exact moment is when you and the Brigitte are actually out of position. And that was all because of not pulling back up the stairs sooner. And so when it turns into a 1v6, basically with Reaper, I know that Reaper gets so much health now and that buff is good, but you want to engage in fights that you're absolutely positive that you can win. I think maybe an alternative of what may have gone better is that rather than staying in the room, you stayed in the upper platform next to the Orisa. And I know one of the options is to sit up on that shelf that's actually to your right over here. And so when the team comes up the stairs, you'd be able to shoot them from the side. And as they started backing down the stairs, you could have turned and jumped down the balcony and then flanked them then. And so when you're playing a flanker and you're trying to flank, and this is something that I did see throughout the gameplay, but when you're trying to flank, you want to make sure that the majority of the team or their attention is focused primarily on the main section of the team. So you want to handle it just like a mercy res is when you start resing, you want to make sure nobody's looking at you or you're not in the line of fire. Flanking is going to be the same way, as where you want to look at their attention and make sure it's a completely different direction. So let's go ahead and keep playing. All right.
They're going upstairs.
So this gets kind of chaotic. I see that you're watching me. Yo, all right. So when you're running,
there's a widow across the way.
Keep hopping. Hop away from spawn. Don't just run in a single. And the reason why you wanna keep hopping is because you'll be able to push forward faster. I mean, it's only by like a second or half a second difference, but you want to keep hopping. So nope. So we do have a ferret. Right now, you and the Orisa are the only ones that are going to have the capability of attacking the Farah because of our team comp. And so that would mean that you absolutely needed to take the high ground, is because either the Orisa's about to jump down. So she's going to jump down onto spawn because she has the shield. She has to. You, on the other hand, you have to take control of this upper high ground here. So anytime that you see yourself as being the only hit scan, which unfortunately Reaper is hit scan, he just doesn't have really good enough range, I guess, to do like all the way from the enemy spawn or anything like that. The Farah is about to fly up anyways, and so you being on the high ground is the only hope of stopping this Farah.
He's going for point again.
So yeah, what is she doing? Okay, so she hits herself on the ceiling, and yeah.
All over the place here.
She's
All
getting
right.
healed. Thank you.
Kill that Farah.
Widow's up top, left side.
All right, so if you were on the high ground, what's going to happen is that she's going to start, or the Moira is going to start pushing towards point, and you'd be shooting with the Farah, but when the Moira starts pushing to point, you could jump down and then shoot the Moira from behind while she's attacking the rest of the team. And maybe the Roadhog would have had a window of opportunity to pull the Moira with this hook. So that's something that could have happened. Then after that, of course, after you dealt with this, that would be a good time to flank as well. So I would say right now would have been the time to drop down. If you see that, let me rewind it here.
Get on that Farah.
So I'm going to pause it, right, to see this positioning here. So yeah, you would know, let's say you're on the high ground right now, as you would know, okay, give it 2 seconds right before they pass you. So right at this point, they're past this doorway in the corner, and they're just now parallel with this walkway up here. And so that would have been the time. Well, it looks like Moira's a little bit further behind, but we do see closer here. So this would have been the perfect time to drop down and ult on them. And you would have taken out all 3 of them. Is they probably would have never looked behind. And yeah, it would have gone great. You would have killed the Ana, and then the Moira would have died next. And then when your ult wore off, you could finish off the Roadhog. So that would have saved a point. Okay, let's look at your ult here. And I do know that you survive this. And, oh no, you don't survive this. Okay, so if you had dropped off instead, then you could have controlled yourself to go around this corner. And so that's something I want you to think about too, is whenever you know that there's a Widowmaker, and there should have been more announcements that there is a Widowmaker, keep in mind about the line of sight. I think that you're a great DPS. I think there's a lot of stuff that you do that's pretty amazing as DPS. But at the same time too, there's little details like this that I think you just need more practice taking into account here. So the Widowmaker, if you had jumped down, you could have ulted and pulled around the corner. I think if you had taken the high ground to begin with, right when you came out of spawn, you probably would have had a chance to kill the Widowmaker and then kill the Farah. I think what would have happened is that the Widowmaker would be looking straight towards point while you're coming up the stairs and running down this walkway. I think the Widowmaker would have actually missed you completely from her scope. But here we are. So the alternative here is that if you had jumped down, I mean, assuming that the Widowmaker would have moved somewhere else, but I just want to let you know is whenever you're ulting as Reaper, you want to ult in 2 circumstances. Either when the enemy has grouped and then they're starting to push and then you're going to ult from the flank, or to clear off the point. And so right now you actually didn't do either one. And I'm not trying to come down on you too hard or anything. I just want to let you know is that you don't ever want to ult when standing directly in front of the group, because that makes you an instant target. I think you got very lucky, because what usually happens is when the Reaper starts ulting, the Roadhog just hooks and pulls him, and that's pretty much the end game for the Reaper. So you want to keep that in mind, is that you want to keep an eye out for their cooldowns. Like if there's an Ana, you want to make sure the Ana has already used her sleep dart, but you also don't want to ult directly. Another possibility of what you could have done was wraith formed around this corner and then ulted coming out of this room, and I think you would have had the same effect, but you would have still been alive. So there's a number of alternatives that you could have done, but the fact that you ulted directly in front of them right here was actually a problem. So they knew you were going to ult too, is that it looks like the Orisa panicked and put down a shield. What she could have done was actually use her little halt orb and then bumped you back behind the corner again, and your ult wouldn't have done anything. And I'm not saying that, you know, that doesn't happen here, of course, but I think a better team would have been more spot on with this, is where I think the Ana would have slept you, and then the Roadhog might have grabbed you and pulled you, and then they just would have killed you there. But in this case, you did get 3, so that's good.
Okay, 3 down. Road, Ana, Moira. Widow.
And then we have Widow here. Basically, the other thing too is that I want you to keep in mind as well is, like I said, since this team is very close range, or the team comp that we have, you are the only hope of being able to get the Widow too, or at least being able to keep her out of position or keep her out of play. So that's something you need to think about when you're doing DPS, is that you want to make sure that the score is even. So if it's a 5v5, 6v6, 3v3, whatever you have to do, you want to make sure that the bodies are the same. And I know right now the bodies are diminished, but you also have to think about is, since there's no long range answer for the Widow right now, is that, yeah, we have the Orisa, but the Orisa is also the only tank, or I mean, the only shield tank, and Orisa has a pretty hard time on Lunar Colony in these circumstances, that the Widow might as well be equal to 2 players at this point in time, because she can pretty much freely take shots right now and nobody's going to be able to put her in her place. So that's something you want to think about, is that the Widow is totally unchecked, and right now the Orisa's attention is totally distracted too, so you were pretty much the only hope. And so what I would say is, if you're going to play a Reaper on here, your main agenda should be to keep control of this high ground in this sort of comp again. If there was, if we had an Anna, then the story would be different. Or if we had an Ashe or even a Hanzo, then we probably would have had a completely different outcome here. But since we went with the Reaper and we didn't have anybody else who was very long range, it meant that the Widow had a little bit of an advantage. And so that's what I want to teach the team to start paying attention to, is the comp that we choose. We want to think about what advantages and disadvantages that we have. So some advantages that we do have is that the comp that we have is very close range, and it has a high damage output when you're close range. And so that's what we needed to consider, is to say, okay, well, we have a hard time until the enemy team gets close. And then when we get close, or when they get close, we can just blow them up. But we didn't take advantage of that. If that was the case, or if we were playing that way where we were considering the close range, long range sort of ideas, it might have been better that we settled on point and just defended the entrances that the enemy team comes to point on. And so that way they're actually drawn in closer to us, and they can't really escape either. And so that's probably something we could have considered, but we didn't. So that's all I just want to draw your attention to in the future too.
She's up in the middle, right here next to the point.
All right. Again, we want to hop away from spawn. Start hopping. Your teleport, you can use it here. By the time you get back to point, your teleport will have recharged too, so that will give you a faster time to get out of spawn. All right, keep going. All right, good. You're on the high ground. Keep going. Yes.
Just need an answer to that Widow.
Yep, shoot that hoe out of the sky. Perfect. Perfect. That is exactly what you need to do. Okay, you're back on track again?
Behind the barrier.
Awesome. Yes. Exactly.
Don't stand in front of me.
All right. Good.
I'm asleep.
Oh. Okay, so the next thing too is, when you are playing Reaper, or any DPS rather, when it comes to deciding attack priority, and obviously healers are going to be first, but you did the right thing as far as going as the Pharah, after the Pharah, and then going after the Widow. When it comes to deciding as far as the healers, who to prioritize first, you want to go after the slower moving healer first. So that would mean that you'd go after the Zenyatta would be the slowest, and then you go after the Anna, and then you go after the Moira, and then you would go after, the Brigitte. So it would be Zenyatta, Anna, Brigitte, Moira, Mercy, and then Lucio. And so that's the order that you would want to go in. And right now you actually got the order reversed, where you were going after the Moira first and then the Anna. And so the reason why you want to go after the slower moving is just so you can get them out of the way faster. And it does look like that the Anna used her sleepy dart on you. And so that's one of the biggest things, is anytime you're doing anything with a Reaper, you want to look, if they have an Anna, you want to start asking the team to call out when they use their sleep dart, because that sleep dart is such a big deal. It can stop basically everybody's ults. It can stop it cold, so we want to make sure that we're paying a little bit more attention to the Anna sleep dart.
Charger.
Oh, thank you for that.
All right.
Okay, healer Moira's down.
Okay, good.
I'm phasing out. I need a heal. They have sights, don't peek.
All right, that's good. That's good.
I hear someone on the left side.
Oh, sad. All right.
Oh shit.
That was good. Yeah, you needed to get to the high ground. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Yep, kill her.
Alright, that's gone. Back
Kill
up.
her. She jumped down. I mean, if it's gone, the moment it's gone, you needed to wraith form and get out of there as fast as possible. If you cannot get out of there, and this is actually really close, this is unique to this map where you're trying to wraith form and run out, and I think you did take about a second to 2 seconds, a little bit longer to decide what you're going to do. At this point, they're so close to taking the point that they're going to be hot on your heels. It would have been faster if you actually suicided by jumping onto the point to take up more seconds, and then when they kill you, you would have respawned before they got back to the point B. And so I think that really would have been the better course of action here. So sometimes that is the answer, is to kill yourself. It sucks, I know, because you know, kill to death ratio is very nice, and you know, all the stats that go with it or whatever. But that is something I would have done, is just go down there, see if you can take out a healer, because you're going to die anyways. And if you took out a healer, you would have actually stopped their push or delayed it by 10 seconds, 10 to 12 seconds. And so that's what I would have done.
They got that point. Come back, Sassy.
I'm trying. Oh god!
Yeah.
I heated the shield further.
And I think too is when you're thinking about tactics with the enemy team, it's just keeping in mind what abilities they do have. So you know, for example, that if there's a Roadhog in play, you're going to be in range of his hook, or you need to take his hook into consideration. And I think that's just something that's going to come with practice, or that somebody announces over time, is saying like, oh, okay, the Roadhog has a hook, so if you're trying to run, it's not going to happen. Yeah, so that's just something to keep in mind. I think either you were going to get slept, or the Moira was going to come after you and use you to get her ult. I think a better team would have done that, where the better team would have looked to see who was closest to ult. The Roadhog would have hooked, and then they would have just harvested you pretty much. And so that's not something that we're going to see until we get to high platinum, is when they start playing like that. So just wanted to let you know.
I thought you were gonna make it for sure. We need an answer to that, Farah. This is like, we don't have enough range.
Yeah, I'm more after the widow.
Okay, and I think that I did hear the Arisa saying we don't have enough range. That is something that we will need to work on as far as strategy, is that comp isn't the answer to everything. This doesn't mean like, okay, switch to a soldier and that's going to solve all your problems. That's not the way that Overwatch works as far as team play. If this was I mean, this is quick play, but if we're doing quick play style and it's not another 6-stack, then yeah, somebody could switch to soldier and solve everything, and then the Pharah ceases to be a problem. But in this case, I think that we should have started suggesting creative solutions, such as the Roadhog hook the Pharah, and then you stand next to the Roadhog and shoot the Pharah as the Pharah gets reeled in, and then you can take care of her pretty quickly. Or you know, the Arisa could use the halt orb, and then the Roadhog could hook that way, and then you can you can shoot the Pharah as she's getting reeled in. Or the Junkrat could have thrown a trap next to the Roadhog's feet and then pulled in the Pharah, and then the Pharah would have gotten stuck in the trap, and then everybody could have finished it. And so that's something that we want to start orienting ourselves towards, problem solving as far as combining that. So, for example, you know that the Roadhog every 8 seconds is going to get a hook, where the Roadhog does so much damage, and all you need to do is stand next to the Roadhog, and that would mean every 8 seconds you guys are automatically killing one person. And I think that's really the strength that we should have started looking for. Or we know that, who else? The Arisa, you could have hid around the corner, and then the Arisa could have thrown the orb, and every time that the orb hit, you would be getting an instant kill. Plus, you'd be getting healed. And so I think that's another way of looking at problem solving here.
Widow's top left.
Okay, well, they're collapsing my barrier like instantly.
Okay, so for here, I did want to talk to you a little bit about this. They have a widow, so you crossing in front where there's a straight line of sight is not going to help. I think a better team would have just shot you the second you crossed in front, is where they have a shield, so the widow could just snipe for days, and you want to be conscious of that, is that crossing over into the open, at this point, since they're on B and there's 4 minutes left of the objective, that's a risk that should have not been taken. It's just too high of a risk here as far as trying to play down one person or whatnot. If you had gotten killed or picked, the team would have rushed in and there was nothing that anybody could do. So let's keep going. I think that you would have been better served sitting right where you're standing at right now, right where I paused it. And I would have encouraged the Orisa to take a position up the side here. And so you guys would have turtled behind this barrier here. And then if somebody tried to flank, you could pick them off. Or in this case, if they had turned around and gone behind you, see this barrier here, if they had gone this way or through that exit over here, then that would have been good for you to actually go main and then flank behind them while the engagement already started, or you could go the other way around. And so, yeah, I would have encouraged the Orisa to take a position here, and then her shield would have blocked sideways
Oh shit, I missed.
rather than direct. All right, let's see. Nope. You're actually 1v6ing at this point. Is what's happening is that I know that the rest of our team is shooting at them, but we have this beautiful shield that's protecting the team, and then you came in behind the shield, and then the entire team turns to face you. For all the healing, there's no way that you're going to be able to 1v6 the enemy team, and so that's actually what happened here. So this death, and then again this was an ult in front of the enemy team. Right now your death is pretty predictable, so just of all my time playing Mercy, I already know that healing you would not be something that I could do, as I would just let you die, which I do believe that happens, and it sucks, but at this point you're at the point of no return here, where you're not going to be able to make it out. Is that you've already used your Wraith form, you've ulted, and this is pretty much it for you.
Somewhere? I hear her.
He's back left.
Yeah, focus there.
Oh, and you're living like 10 times longer than you should. So I'm impressed. Sorry, I thought you would die here, but you should have. You should have absolutely died here. So killing her is exactly what needed to happen. You're back on course again with doing the right thing that you needed to do. Punch her to death. Yes, great. Okay. All right, yeah, go face her. All right, be careful in here. You're fighting 2 healers. All right, now you're fighting 1 tank in her little damage reduction mode. So she takes 50% damage reduction, and she's surrounded by 2 healers. And so I think in this case, you may have wanted to back off to wait for that little damage reduction bullshit to wear off.
Widow.
Oh, we're pushing up too far.
Yeah,
I know.
Back up.
I just got so many heads.
Okay, so that ult, I mean, that's good that you were able to kill the Ana when you ulted. I think, or I'm getting the real feeling here is that with the Reaper upgrade, it's so easy to fall in the idea that the Reaper is pretty much like the Terminator here, is the Reaper can just run in and kill everything, and in a way he can, but you still want to play Reaper like he's the Reaper. So you want to think about it that way, is that the Reaper will come and go after people who are usually alone, and then he kills them and then gets out and shifts different positions, so he can come from anywhere, and he just jumps out there and handles the job and then leaves. So you want to think about it like that. You don't want to think about it as the frontline fighter. It feels almost like you're playing Reaper with the idea of a soldier, whereas the soldier is going to be very direct and frontline, and but the soldier is going to be hanging near the tank too. So I feel like with the update to him, or the buff that he's gotten, it's almost like forgetting how he's intended to be played, and so you still need to play him how he's intended to be played. But that ult, for example, needed to either come from behind them or it needed to come from a flank. But personally, I think that what you could have done was teleported up to the rafters, and then when they started pushing from point, you would have had a better time. And I'll show you a clip of that at the end of what I mean, just to make sure that we understand. But
Off of their tank, I just needed
yeah, I
to.
mean, headshots or no, is that I think it would have been better if you had backed out and waited until that thing ended, that waited until that golden body thing that does 50% damage reduction ended for the Orisa, and then waited until they pushed in, because they were trying to group, and with Reaper you kind of want them to group and then you want to use your ult. Or you could have worked with the Orisa to say, okay, use your halt orb and pull them all together, and then I'm going to ult. And so that would have been something that might have worked pretty well. Or she could have thrown a shield in front of you from where you were ulting from, and you could have just ulted behind the shield. So there were some options, but really you want teamwork to decide how to tackle the problem of the enemy team. And so if you're not using your ult with other people, you're doing it wrong at this point. If you're not coordinating or explaining how you're going to do it, then you're doing it wrong. And so this is not quick play, and I think that a lot of us have been too used to functioning independently.
I don't know,
So
they
let's
also
keep
have a
going.
Reaper.
It's
So I
instead of the
will.
widow,
Yeah.
I think.
Okay, so they did switch to Reaper instead of the Widow. The reason why they're switching to Reaper instead of the Widow is because they're trying to get ult now. And so that's one of the reasons why they do a switch towards the end, is they're trying to say, okay, let's finish this as fast as possible. And what can we do? Well, one of the options is to go Genji, but there's a Brigitte. One of the other options is to go a soldier, but we have an Orisa. And so they're saying, okay, how can we end this as fast as possible? And that's why they were going Reaper.
And Reaper instead of Pharah.
I don't know. No, Reaper was the widow. Rag was the widow.
Well, he's trapped right now, top left.
Dropping down. Oh, he wasn't gonna drop down. Their tanks are pushing forward
Where are they?
in the center.
All right, so here, you spent a little too much time in the hallway here, and so this was one of the things that I did mention, is that you did need to be out at the point, and at that point, or in that moment, and I know that you're looking through this here, in that moment, I know that you're trying to find a flank. The idea is you want to stick with the team, and then once the engagement starts is when you flank. And so when they said, okay, they're starting to push in, you should have been there to see that, and then that's when you flank, or then that's when you break off and go find your flank. Right now, you're trying to hide and wait for the enemy team to get into position when it's just taking too much time, because they could have entered in from the opposite side, and by the time you get there, everybody could be dead already. Like if there was a Genji here, the Genji would have just jumped in and tore everybody up, and you'd be getting to the point last. And so right now you're in a position to where you're far enough from the fight itself. It's as if you had just respawned. And so you want to think about that too, is that everything that you're doing with any DPS is trying to build ult. So because the ults for the DPS are such a big deal, is that if you're taking 5 or 6 seconds where you're not building ult, you're actually wasting time. So whatever you do, you're building ult. That's how you need to think about doing DPS now.
The widow.
Well, he's trapped right now, top left.
Dropping down. Oh,
So what I mean is, as far as building the ult, and I'm going to pause it right when we get there, but
No, Reaper was the widow.
all right, watch
Rag
this.
was the widow.
Well, he's trapped right now, top left.
Right here. So you can see the enemy team here, and since your main focus is to build ult, you could be shooting at them right now. So yeah, and then also about your crosshair, we need to talk about your crosshair too. Okay, so let's go ahead. Alrighty.
tanks are pushing forward
Where are they?
in the center.
All right, so if they're in the center, yeah, okay.
I'm going around back.
All right, good. I do think that if you had started from the beginning where the Orisa is and you were breaking off, you would have been there at the same point in time, so you'd have the same opportunity, but you would actually have higher ult charge.
Okay.
Oh no.
Supercharger. Nope.
You want to get the supercharger first, and the reason why is because the supercharger does, I think it's what is it, like 30% more damage or something like that, or 35% more damage, which is a big deal. So if a soldier's rocket does, 100 health, then it means that they're doing 130, and then he can just finish off with a clip. So it's not really that big of a deal, but yeah, that supercharger needs to go away first.
Oh, baby.
No, the supercharger would have been the priority, then the Anna would have been next, and then you needed to wraith form out of the way after you're done with that. And then you'd go back into the inside and get that shield down, because you'd be shooting through the shield towards the Orisa. So you'd go number 1, number 2, and then shoot the Orisa. That's pretty much it. And it looks like the Anna's just one shot away, and so she needed to go. And also the Anna could have shut you down too, because all she needed to do was a sleep dart and you would have been done. So she was definitely the priority here.
Oh, Nox, where are you going?
Oh no, get her, yes. Okay. Okay, yes, perfect. All right. You want to start pulling away, because he does have a hook and there is an Orisa behind him still. I hope that you finish him. Let's find out. Yes, good. I would have said, this is something that I'm going to take up with Eli's video here, is what should have happened is that you would have started pulling away, and then the Roadhog would have pulled the enemy Roadhog further in, and so then you guys, that would give a focused target, and so you guys would have finished off the enemy Roadhog faster and then started in on the Orisa afterwards. I mean, they both died in the same order, and I get it, but I think that would have been cleaner, and it would have been faster and a little bit more efficient, and also it would have had that habit of working together to get the kill.
Junkrat's top. Alright, fun.
All right, so yeah, you don't want to go into this hallway right now. I'll show you where it would have been better for you to start off while still remaining in the fight. Let's keep going anyways.
What I'm doing. I'm not calling out who's dead. I'm sorry. Oh,
That's okay. I forgive you.
Are they going top left or what? Where are they going?
Let's see where they're going.
I don't either. Oh, what the heck?
Alright. Looks like they might be going mid again.
Again? That
And
hasn't
somebody
worked
went
for
bottom
them.
left.
Bottom left?
They have Reaper and
Reaper's on the bottom left. Reaper.
Okay, so it looks like you did have the right idea, so I do think that that was perfect. But you know that that's what's going to happen, is the Orisa is going to use her little temporary bullshit here that does damage reduction. So I would have said shoot at her, wraith form away, and then go back and then use your ult. But it's just an art, I suppose. Now I sound like, hoity-toity, but it's just you want to look at the abilities that they've used or what abilities they have and make sure that those are out of the way first, and I think that would have coaxed it out first. Alrighty.
Oh, fuck.
See,
I got
oh,
to sleep. Damn it.
yeah, you were surrounded here, and at this point it's pretty obvious that the point is about to be done.
Who's got an ult? Fluffs has an ult.
I have,
You
but
need
I'm dead.
space. Yeah,
We
you
need to
need
go
Let's see.
I'm gonna get Reaper.
All right, wraith form. And the reason why you want to wraith form in a time like this to get to point is because you'll travel faster, and I know that you need wraith form to stay alive, so that part I get it. But in this case, since nobody's grouping up, you need to get to point as fast as the other person on point ahead of you.
I'm ulting.
We got a barrier.
Please, oh god, please.
Yeah, it's already done, so it's kind of a shame here.
Oh, no.
I do think at the end,
Don't res.
and I tried to res you because there was no other option. At the end here, what we should have done was hung back for an extra 3 seconds just to try to get at least 3 people together and tried to group up, at least buy time, and then go on to point at the last moment. And so that is something that we need to think about too. And that's nobody's fault. It was just something that everybody was panicking and trying to get on point as fast as possible. But at the end of the day, we were still trickling on point. And so that's something that I want to draw to everybody's attention here too. So I just wanted to point that out to you. Anyways, let me go ahead and fire up a game and then show you what I mean by where you could have hid instead, okay? Alrighty, so wanted to show you, and it looks like I have 70% latency. Alright, so we'll just let it go. One of the places that I would have recommended you hid, especially when you have alt here, let me show you. Come on, come on, come on.
Repositioning.
Bam! So now you can take out the Farah. If she's hanging out, you can run around here and look cool and feel important or whatever you gotta do. This is a good spot to hide from everybody in the doorway. If you crouch, it'll give you a little bit more coverage. And so this is what you actually could have done. And when they said, okay, they're going mid, all you'd have to do is just like come down here and then bang. And you probably could have ulted before you touch the ground, and they'd be freaking out. All of a sudden you're like a Pharaoh doing her ult here. So that's one of the options here. Another spot, if you know that they're going middle, I would have recommended. I know that you waited in this side room here to go. You could have teleported over here. Come on. Could have done this.
From the shadows.
And then come down here. I would have waited for them to get the point here. But yeah, you don't want to go here and then try to ult here. Another idea too, I just want to let you know, in Horizon,
Death comes.
this is a corner. Oh god damn it. Alright, let me go ahead and get on this high ground here. This corner is an area you can hide to where they won't actually see you, because this wall is back far enough that they'll actually walk right past you if you crouch. So if you're crouching, their camera angle is going to be a little bit higher than you, so they're just going to pass over and not notice you whatsoever. So rather than waiting in that far hall, I would say wait here, and the Junkrat can take care of any flankers on the enemy team that are trying to use this hall. But this would have been a little bit more efficient, so if they're going middle, you could have come out here and then done your thing and then ulted right here and then wraith formed back over here, and then you'd be back in front again. So or you'd actually be flanking because they're going to go, you know, straight in through. There were some things that you did extremely well. For example, you did not fight in the center of point. And that's something, as far as any DPS, don't ever fight in the very dead center of point, because it's going to be where everybody's looking anyways. So you want to take advantage a little bit more of this over here. So you have this wall, and this is very nice for you to protect yourself. I know at that one point where I was saying don't cross directly in front when they have a widow is where you did one of these. What you could have done was actually just walked around this side here. You can use this. You do want to play a little bit closer towards the heal packs here. So for example, there's one here. So this is a little bit more friendly since it's in line of sight for you, and you can reach it while doing Wraith. So you want to stay far enough from the health packs that you can still reach it when you're in Wraith form. So if you're over here, I mean, you can Wraith form over here. But that's the idea, is like if you have to use Wraith form, you're either leaving points to try to, I mean, leaving spawn to get to point faster, or you are wraithing out and going immediately to the next health pack. So it's the same thing as the Genji dash, is where if you're dashing, you're leaving to get to the health pack. Okay, and then let's talk about you leaving spawn. How this is going to look is you're going to get out of spawn from this. Let's say we're going to point A. You want to hop. I know. Let's try to get there as fast as possible. This is what it's going to look like to get there as fast as possible. So we're going to take the high ground here. And then you have 2 seconds before you get another wraith form. So you're already at the spawn if you're doing your job. Okay, cool. And then the last thing I wanted to show you too is some hiding spots in the beginning. So here where you were hiding, this is so obvious, is that anybody who runs this way and then turns, they can actually see you. So they're going to see your guns hanging out here because that wall is not that far back. One of the areas that would have been better for hiding is actually here.
From the shadows.
We have a lot of times you'll see a Reaper that hides here, and if you're going to hide here when the enemy team pushes, you're actually going to have to move around the side, because if there is an enemy who's jumping, like if they're passing through here and they're jumping and they just happen to hop a little bit and they look at the right time, they can actually see you. So you're going to want to turn up your speakers and then listen and hide here and then start moving out a little bit. So the idea is that they're passing this wall on the opposite side that you're on, and so when they pass it and you hear them running, then you can turn around and, okay, let's dance now, and they're going to go straight up the stairs, and then you would be hitting them instead. So I think that would have worked a little bit better. The other option, what I've seen too, come on, really, okay, now that Jeff has allowed us to teleport, the other option that I see too is where like a lot of them like to wait here as well, and then you can watch and see what comp the enemy team has, and then you start going the opposite direction that they are, and then this works the same way as where you can just jump down and do your thing. The only problem is if they go the other way, like they, instead of going around the far side, they turn around and go on the left here, then you're not going to see what comp they have, and that's pretty much it. But keep in mind too, if you ever need to use the Wraith form, you do have this heal pack here. But I do think, last thing before I let you go, I do think with the, it would have been different if there was a sniper, and the reason why the sniper would have been different, if you were trying to hold them up here, that means that they would have stopped and tried to confront you while the sniper would be picking them off, and so that's why that would have worked a little bit better. Since we didn't have a sniper, I would have said is to wait here. You're gonna wait on this little shelf, and when they start coming up the stairs, you're going to shoot at them, and then the moment they start backing up from the stairs, you're going to come around and just go down and cut them off. And then when you cut them off, you're going to start picking them off, and then the rest of the team would have pushed forward while you're pushing behind. And I think that would have done a team kill very quickly here. So, yeah. Alrighty, that's it.